As combat athletes, the exercises that we do off of the mat have never been more crucial for our success on the mats. With endless information on the internet, YouTube, Instagram, it can be kind of overwhelming to know exactly what exercises are leveling up your performance and what exercises are hurting your performance. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down 7 must-do exercises. Every top-level fighter incorporates these exercises into their training. If you want to dominate on the mats or in the cage, if you want to have unbreakable strength, if you want to have insane power and get injured less, then these 7 exercises are a must-add to your strength and conditioning routine. What is good? It's Coach Adam from Counter-Strike, where we make fight science simple. On this channel, I break down everything a combat athlete needs to know about strength, conditioning, nutrition, mindset to help them dominate on the mats or in the cage. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm happy to have you here. Your career is about to change. You're about to evolve as a fighter. So if you're pumped for that, subscribe. If you're not new to the channel, welcome back. I got a great topic for you today. We're going to be talking about weightlifting for combat sports. Specifically, the 7 best exercises that a fighter can possibly do in the weight room. Weightlifting is crucial to a fighter's success on the mat because if we can build unbreakable strength, we can get injured less, we can dominate through our opponents, just manhandle them, throw them around, and the power that we're going to be able to create, it's gonna be incomparable. We're gonna be knocking out people left and right. So if you're pumped, make sure you hit the like button and let's jump right into it. Exercise number 1 that should be in every single combat athlete strength and conditioning routine is the squat. The squat is honestly my favorite movement for athletic development. It's incredible at building overall strength because we can load the squat pretty heavy, heavier than most exercises. We're working our glutes, our hamstrings, our quads. We're staying tight throughout our torso and throughout our upper body. It's just an unbelievable movement for overall body coordination and strength. On top of that, it's going to help us be really powerful because if we can produce more strength and more force from our hamstrings, from our glutes, from our quads, then we're gonna have more knockout power. Our takedowns are going to be more devastating. And on top of that, because we're gonna be able to produce more force, we're going to be able to absorb more force. Things like our ankles, our knees, our hips are way less likely to get injured. There are a few different variations that a combat athlete can do when it comes to their squats. Some of my favorites are the back squat, the Zerker squat, and the front squat. Every athlete's different though. This is why having a coach that understands their athlete, understanding where they are in the different phases of the fight cycle is crucial to picking the squat variation. And honestly, we're gonna be talking about a ton of different variations today. So having a great coach is gonna be crucial when it comes to any kind of exercise selection in general. But if you wanna have insane power, if you wanna prevent injury, then you have to be including the squat in your strength and conditioning routine. Exercise number 2 that all fighters should incorporate into their strength and conditioning routine is a horizontal press. So when we talk about a horizontal press, this is pressing or pushing in our horizontal plane. So some exercises that you're probably familiar with are things like a traditional bench press, a dumbbell bench press, a floor press. These are all great variations for combat athletes. There are 2 reasons why horizontal pressing is so important for combat athletes. The first is injury prevention. If we can produce more force from our chest, our shoulders, our triceps, then our shoulders and our elbows are far less likely to actually get injured. The second reason horizontal pressing is so important is because if we have a lot of upper body strength, we're gonna be able to put more snap at the end of our punches. More force coming from our triceps means more drive, more snap on our strikes. And even for grapplers or some of our MMA athletes, if you're stronger in your shoulders, stronger in your upper body, stronger in your elbows, you're just gonna be able to get out of some of those dangerous situations more efficiently. So a horizontal press like the bench press or a floor press, or even for some of our more injured athletes, we have a lot of athletes that struggle with shoulder injury already, just kind of the nature of the sport. Something like a cable horizontal press might be a really solid variation for them. Exercise number 3 that all combat athletes should be including in their strength and conditioning routine is a vertical press. So when we talk about vertical pressing, we mean pressing overhead. Now, a vertical press isn't going to be as advantageous to power production and knockout power. However, a vertical press is essential when it comes to injury prevention. Like we talked about with the horizontal press, we want to make sure that we are strong through all different ranges of motion. So if we're not pressing overhead, then we are creating a major weakness, which opens us up for more injury. So it's really important that we incorporate some kind of overhead or some kind of vertical press for our shoulder and our elbow health. These could be things like a dumbbell or a barbell overhead press. This could be something like a half kneeling press. We could incorporate landmines. We want to use some kind of tool that makes us strong overhead. The more force that we can produce overhead, the larger range of motion that we can be strong and actually produce that force in, then the less likely we are to get injured on the mats or in the cage. The 4th exercise that we incorporate in every single one of our combat athlete strength and conditioning routines is a hinge. When I talk about a hinge, I mean something like a Romanian deadlift or a good morning or a trap bar deadlift. And the hinge is one of the most important movements that a fighter can do for strength and power development, as well as preventing injury. The hinge movements are crucial for developing our posterior chain, or a lot of our back muscles. As humans, and especially athletes, we spend most of our time in our anterior chain, or the front of our body. And as combat athletes, we're rounded a lot. We're here for striking, we're here for jiu-jitsu, we're here for wrestling. And so a lot of these front muscles are very active, and a lot of our back muscles are very weak. So if we want to make sure that we avoid injury, then it's crucial that we build a strong posterior chain through hinging. Not only are hinge movements important for preventing injury, but they're also some of the best movements that we can use for power production. If we think about what allows us to throw strikes with knockout power or just execute devastating takedowns, this is done through the extension of our ankle, our knees, and our hips. Now, what causes our ankles, our knees, and our hips to extend? Well, our hamstrings and our glutes. So by doing movements like the Romanian deadlift or the trap bar deadlift, we're learning how to produce more force through our hamstrings and our glutes. So we're going to be able to have more power behind our strikes and our takedowns. Exercise number 5 that every combat athlete should incorporate in their strength and conditioning routine is a vertical pull. So we talked about the vertical push, which is pushing overhead. Now the vertical pull, which is pulling overhead. Just like we want to be strong through all ranges of motion pressing, we also need to be strong through all ranges of motion pulling, especially when it comes to preventing shoulder injury. If you remember when we were talking about the hinge, we talked about how a lot of fighters have weak posterior chains, or the back part of our body. This is why vertical pulling is so important. If we're pulling heavy through something like a lat pull down or a chin up or a pull up, we're going to improve the strength in our back muscles, things like our scaps and our shoulders and our traps. The stronger we are through those upper back muscles, the less likely we are to have shoulder injuries when we're on the mats, when we're grappling, or when we're striking. Exercise number 6 that all combat athletes should be incorporating in their strength and conditioning routine is a horizontal pull. Just like we talked about horizontal pressing, it's also crucial that combat athletes are strong when it comes to horizontal pulling. Horizontal pulls like the barbell bent over row, the cable row, or the landmine row are all incredible movements for building some of our back muscles. This is super important for the overall strength of our posterior chain. This is going to help prevent shoulder and elbow injury. And for my grapplers and MMA athletes, being able to horizontally pull with a lot of force is going to help out your game a lot. You're going to be able to execute arm drags more efficiently. You're going going to be able to finish submissions, because when we're squeezing for a rear naked choke, it's a lot of our ability to pull our back muscles down and back strong. So if we can produce a lot of force through that horizontal pull movement, then we're going to be able to finish our submissions with much more efficiency while also preventing injury in our shoulders and our elbows. And the seventh exercise that all combat athletes should be incorporating in their strength and conditioning routine are rotational movements. When we look at combat sports, they are full of rotational movements. When we throw punches, we rotate our body and our hips. When we shoot and execute a takedown, we rotate our body and our hips. Even in jiu-jitsu, when we're passing, we're rotating in our body and our hips. Rotation plays such a huge role when it comes to combat athletes, but the reality is many combat athletes struggle with rotation, especially through their thoracic spine. If we can improve our strength and our mobility and our coordination with rotational movements, then we are going to move more efficiently when we're on the mats, which means we are going to execute our techniques with less effort, we're gonna get injured less, and we're just gonna dominate like a badass. Some of my favorite rotational movements are exercises like cable chops, like band rotations, like weighted pull-throughs with a kettlebell. These are some incredible movements for not only increasing your mobility through the rotational plane, but also your ability to produce force. This is going to help us get injured less, as well as be way more efficient and successful on the mats or in the cage. So there you go. Those are my 7 must-do exercises for all combat athletes at all levels. If you're serious about winning fights or just training for the rest of your life without getting injured, then what you do in the weight room is super important to your success and your longevity. Now, there's a lot more that goes into strength and conditioning for combat athletes. It's not just about the exercises. There's the reps, there's the sets, it's when we do our workouts, it's where we are in the different phases of the fight cycle. So if you want to learn even more, I have an entire playlist that you can click up there to watch all of my videos on strength training for combat sports. And if you want to see what a professional level strength and conditioning program looks like when it comes to combat athletes, I have a link down in the description for my 21-day challenge. This is an absolutely free, you heard it right, free 3-week strength and conditioning program for combat athletes. If you've never done strength and conditioning for your sport before, or you're curious about what it looks like to actually train like a professional, then this is an incredible place to start. Just click the link down in the description to get your hands on it. I hope you dug the video. If you learned a lot, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you subscribe, and I'll catch you next time.